The transport ship moved slowly toward the massive space station. Inside, Park sat alone and looked through the small window. Station Ver 7 was bigger than anything she had ever seen. It was like a small city floating in space. Thousands of lights blinked on its surface. Ships of all sizes moved around it like insects around a lamp. Was 24 years old. She was not tall, only about 165 cm. Her body was lean and strong, but she did not look like a fighter. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her face was calm, showing no emotion. She had learned long ago to hide what she felt inside. Back on Earth, she had been a soldier. Korean Special Forces. She had trained for years in the mountains and jungles. She had learned to fight to survive and to never give up. When the Galactic Council invited humanity to send one person to the Combat Academy, the military chose her. She did not ask to be chosen, but she did not refuse either. The ship docked with a soft sound, picked up her small bag, and walked toward the exit. The door opened, and she stepped onto the station for the first time. The air smelled strange. It was clean but had a chemical taste. The gravity felt slightly different too, a little lighter than Earth. His body noticed these things immediately. Her training had taught her to always be aware of her environment. The docking bay was full of aliens. Had seen pictures and videos before, but seeing them in person was different. A group of tall, blue-skinned beings walked past her. They had 4 eyes and moved with liquid grace. Behind them, a creature that looked like a walking boulder made heavy footsteps on the metal floor. In the corner, something with too many legs was speaking to a floating sphere. Nobody looked at, or rather they looked at her and then looked away. She was just a human, nothing interesting. A man walked toward her. He was human, middle-aged, with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. He wore a simple uniform with an Earth flag on the shoulder. Park, he asked in Korean. Yes, I am Sun. I work here as a liaison officer. I help humans who come to the station. He paused and looked at her carefully. You are younger than I expected. Is that a problem? No, maybe it is better. He began walking and followed. The academy has never graduated a human. You know this, I know. Most humans who come here leave within weeks. Some leave because they choose to. Others leave because they are injured. Sung's voice was flat. He was stating facts, not trying to scare her. The aliens here do not hate us. It is worse than that. They think we are nothing. We are like children to them, weak, fragile, short-lived. They walked through long corridors. Walls were made of some dark metal that did not recognize. Other beings passed them and sometimes had to step aside to avoid being pushed. She noticed that nobody stepped aside for her. Humans have only been part of galactic society for 12 years. Sun continued. To most species we are still new. They do not understand us. They see that we have no claws, no armor, no poison. They see that we live only 80 or 90 years. They think we are weak because of this. And what do you think? Asked, smiled, but there was no happiness in it. I think they have never seen a human who refuses to die. They arrived at a large door. Above it, alien writing glowed in soft blue light. A translation appeared below. In English, Combat Division Sigma. This is Commander's Division. Sun said. He is very old, very strong. He has been teaching combat for 300 years. He turned to face directly. he does not like. Humans, he thinks we should not be allowed in the academy. Be careful. Around him, nodded. One more thing, son. Said, do not try to prove yourself too quickly. Watch, learn, survive. That is the most important thing. Survive. The door opened, stepped through. Training hall was enormous. The ceiling was so high that could barely see it. The floor was covered in some material that felt soft under her feet, designed to absorb impacts. Around the hall, different groups of aliens were training. Some were fighting with weapons, others were wrestling. Sounds of combat filled the air, and then she saw Commander. He was standing in the center of the hall watching everything. He was over 2.12 m, tall, towering over most other beings. His body was covered in hard, dark plates that looked like armor. He had 4 arms, each one ending in hands with sharp claws. His face was not human at all. It had no nose, just 2 large eyes, and a mouth full of mandibles that clicked together when he spoke. He turned and looked at for a moment. Neither of them moved, then began walking toward her. Each step made a heavy sound on the floor. Other cadets stopped their training to watch. He stopped in front of her and looked down. His eyes were black and showed nothing human, he said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The translator, an ear, made his words into English. You are the one they sent. Yes, Commander. His mandibles clicked several times. It sounded like laughter. Interesting. He walked around her, slowly examining her like she was an object. Small, soft, no natural weapons, no armor. How do humans survive on your world? We adapt, said. Adapt, repeated the word like it tasted bad. Other species have strength, speed, venom. Humans have adaptation, more clicking sounds. Tell me, human, how long do your kind live? About 80 years. Some longer. 80 years. Stopped in front of her again. I have weapons in my quarters older than that. I have scars older than that. What can a creature that lives only 80 years possibly know about combat? Did not answer. She kept her face calm and her body still. The council says I must train you, continued, so I will train you, but I will not waste resources on something that will break. In the first week, he turned away. Find your quarters. Training begins tomorrow. At first cycle, do not be late. He walked away without looking back, stood alone in the center of the great hall. Around her, 200 cadets from 40 different species watched. Some looked curious. Most looked amused. A few looked at her with something that might have been pity. She picked up her bag and walked toward the exit. That night lay on the small bed in her quarters and stared at the ceiling. The room was tiny, barely big enough for the bed and a small desk. Through the window, she could see stars. She thought about Commander's words. She thought about how everyone looked at her like she was already defeated. She thought about all the humans who had come before her and failed. Then she closed her eyes and began a plan. She would not fail. She would not break. She would not give up. That was what it meant to be human. The alarm woke at exactly 5 hours before the first training cycle. She had set it early on purpose. She wanted time to prepare. She washed her face with cold water and did her morning exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, stretches. Her body moved through the routine automatically. She had done these same exercises every morning for 6 years. They were as natural as breathing. When she finished, she sat on the floor and closed her eyes. She breathed slowly and deeply in. Her mind, she reviewed everything she knew about the academy, the layout of the station, the different species. Commander, she had studied them before. Coming here, they were a warrior species, their home planet had high gravity and dangerous predators. They evolved armor and multiple arms to survive. They were strong, fast, and very proud. They also had weaknesses. Every species did. She just needed to find them. When the time came, walked to Training Hall Sigma. She arrived early, but other cadetses were already there. They stood in groups talking in languages she could not understand. Some looked at her when she entered, most did not. She found a place near the wall and waited. A large alien approached her. It was a species that looked like a rhinoceros walking on two legs. Its skin was thick and gray, covered in small bumps. Two small horns grew from its forehead. Despite its frightening appearance, its eyes seemed kind. You are the human, it said. Its voice was surprisingly soft. Yes, I am. The made a gesture that guessed was a greeting. I have never met a human before. You are smaller than I expected. Most species are taller than us. Made a sound like a deep rumble. On my world, we have a saying, small creatures often have big spirits. I hope this is true. For you human, this place is not kind to the weak. Before could respond, a loud horn sounded. All the cadets immediately moved to the center of the hall and formed lines, joined them. Finding a place in the back, Commander walked onto a raised platform. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His black eyes scanned the crowd. Welcome to Combat Division Sigma, he said. His voice was loud and cold. I am Commander. For the next year I will turn you into warriors or I will break you. There is no third option. He began walking along the platform, looking at different cadetses. You come from many worlds. Some of you are strong, some are fast, some have natural weapons that could kill with a single touch. He stopped. And some of you have nothing. His eyes found. Human stepped forward, walked through the crowd. She could feel everyone watching her. She stopped at the base of the platform and looked up. The Galactic Council has decided that humans should be allowed in my academy, said. He spoke loudly so everyone could hear. They say humans are a new species with potential. They say we should give them a chance. His mandibles clicked with amusement. So I will give you a chance, human. Tell the class what makes your species special. Thought for a moment. We learn quickly. Learn quickly, laughed. It was an ugly sound. They have been studying combat for 50,000 years. That have warrior traditions going back 30,000 generations. And humans think they can learn quickly enough to catch up. He jumped down from the platform. The floor shook when he landed. He walked toward until he was standing right in front of her. His shadow fell over her completely. Let me tell you what humans are, he said. You are soft. Your skin tears easily. Your bones break easily. You have no claws, no armor, no venom, no natural weapons of any kind. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot hear very well. You cannot smell danger approaching. He leaned closer. His mandibles were centimeters from her face. On your world, you were predators, but only because you made tools. Without your weapons, you are nothing but prey. Weak, slow, fragile prey. He straightened up and addressed the class again. The human is here as a political gesture, nothing more. She will not complete this training. No human ever has. He turned back to, I will not treat you Differently, I will not make things easier for you. When you fail, you will fail honestly. Do you understand? Yes. Commander, good. He walked back to the platform. Today we begin with basic assessments. You will run, you will lift, you will fight. I will see what each of you is made of. The assessments began, watched as cadets from different species demonstrated their abilities. A tall, thin alien with silver skin ran so fast it was almost invisible. A creature covered in fur lifted weights that looked impossible for its size. Two beings with 4 legs fought each other with such speed that could barely follow the movements. When her turn came, she did her best. She ran, she lifted, she fought against a training dummy that moved and attacked. On its own, she was not the slowest, she was not the weakest, but she was close. Watched everything and said nothing. After the assessments ended, he made his decisions. Most cadets were assigned to advanced combat drills, was assigned to remedial physical conditioning. She would train alone, doing basic exercises, while everyone else learned to fight. Some cadets laughed quietly, others looked at her with pity, though caught her eye and made a small gesture that might have been sympathy. Showed nothing on her face, she simply nodded and went to her assigned area. For the next several hours she ran, climbed and lifted weights while the other cadets practiced combat moves. Behind her, she could hear them fighting, she could hear shouting instructions, she could hear laughter. Sometimes probably at her expense. She did not let it affect her. She focused on her body, on each movement, on each breath. That evening, after training ended, went to the observation deck. It was a large room with big windows that showed the stars outside. She found a quiet corner and sat down. A woman approached her. She was human, older than, with short hair and intelligent eyes. She wore a technician's uniform. You must be the new cadet, the woman said. I am. Oh, I work in the engineering section. Parking sat down next to her. I watched part of your assessment today on the station cameras. She paused. I am sorry is hard on everyone, but he is especially hard on humans. I expected it. Really? Looked at her with curiosity. You do not seem upset. Pulled out a small on the screen was a video of Commander fighting. I have been watching combat footage of the studying their techniques. Why? Looked at her. Her eyes were calm and cold. Because I am looking for weaknesses. Stared at her for a long moment. Then she smiled. You are not like the other humans who came here. How were they? Scared, angry. They tried to prove themselves too fast. They pushed too hard and broke. Shook her head. You are different. You are patient. Turned back to her. On Earth, our ancestors hunted by following prey for days. They did not catch animals by being faster or stronger. They caught them by never giving up, by waiting, by being patient. She zoomed in on an image of knee joint. Everything has a weakness. You just have to be patient enough to find it. Watched her study the footage. What if you cannot find a weakness? Did not answer immediately. She was looking at the way moved, the way his legs bent, the places where his armor did not cover completely. There is always a weakness, she said. Finally, always. Outside the window, the stars burned in the darkness. Somewhere among them was Earth. Somewhere among them was home. But did not look at the stars. She looked at her, at the image of her enemy. And she planned. She had learned something important from Commander. Today, he thought she was nothing. He thought she was already defeated. That was his first mistake. and intended to make sure it was a mistake he would never forget. 3 months passed on station. Verse 7. 3 months of pain, 3 months of exhaustion, 3 months of being pushed to the edge of what a human body could survive. Commander had designed special training just for, he called it, personalized conditioning. Everyone else called it torture. Every day began in the high-gravity chamber. The room simulated gravity twice as strong as Earth. Walking was difficult. Running was agony. Fighting was nearly impossible. Spent hours in that chamber, forcing her body to move through air that felt like water. After the gravity chamber came the endurance runs, long distances across the station, upstairs, down corridors, through sections where the temperature changed from burning hot to freezing cold. Other cadets ran too, but they were allowed to stop and rest. Was not. Then came the combat simulations, fighting against training robots that moved faster than any creature on Earth. Sometimes one robot, sometimes 3, sometimes 5. They hit hard enough to leave bruises that lasted for weeks. Watched everything. He never smiled. He never showed approval, but sometimes caught him looking at her with something she could not identify. Confusion maybe, or frustration. Because did not break, other cadets did. After 8 weeks, a silicon-based collapse from heat exhaustion during a desert simulation. The medical team carried him away, and he never returned. After 10 weeks, the fractured his leg. During a sparring match, he needed 2 weeks in a regeneration tank to heal. When he came back, he found in the cafeteria she was eating alone as usual. "You are still here," said he. He sounded surprised. "Yes, I was certain you would leave while I was healing." He sat down across from her. Everyone was certain there were bets. Looked up from her food. What were the odds? 100 to 1 against you surviving the first month. 200 to 1 against you lasting 3 months. Made his rumbling laugh. "Some people lost a lot of money because of you." Good. Studied her face. "You are different from when you arrived. Stronger. Your muscles are more defined. Your movements are more efficient." Nodded. She had noticed it too. Her body was adapting to the brutal training. Humans were good at adaptation. It was one of the few advantages they had, but physical changes were not the only changes. Was learning things that could not be measured. She had memorized the fighting styles of every species in the academy. She knew how it attacked, how it defended, how the silver-skinned moved. She knew which species were vulnerable to cold and which were vulnerable to heat. She knew which ones could see in darkness and which ones could not. During a strategy class tested the cadets on combat theory, he asked each one to describe how they would defeat an enemy twice their size. Most cadets gave obvious answers: hit harder, move faster, use weapons. When asked, she gave a different answer. "I would study the enemy first," she said. "Every species has weak points, places where their armor is thin, joints that can be broken. I would attack those points. Size does not matter if you know where to strike." Stared at her. "And how would you learn these weak points?" "By watching, by studying, by being patient." Patience. His mandibles clicked. Patience is what prey uses to hide from predators on Earth. Said, patience is what predators use to catch prey. The room was silent. Other cadets looked at each other nervously. Nobody talked back to Commander but did not punish her. He simply turned away and continued the lesson. Later told that some cadets saw a flicker of something in its eyes, something that might have been respect, or maybe concern. The weeks continued, rose through the rankings. She was not at the top. She would never be the fastest or the strongest, but she was climbing, steadily passing cadets who had seemed far superior when training began. Her body produced chemicals that helped her survive. The station's medical AI flagged them during a routine scan. Adrenaline levels are extremely high. The AI reported to the medical staff. The human's body is producing natural combat stimulants at unusual rates. Doctor examined the results. Is this normal for humans? Yes, the AI replied. Humans evolved on what is classified as a Category 4. Their bodies developed chemical responses to help them survive dangerous situations. These chemicals increase strength, speed, and pain tolerance. Temporarily, the doctor made a note in file. Interesting, the human is essentially drugging herself naturally. That is one way to describe it. Another way is to say that humans are always ready for combat even when they do not know it. Word spread through the academy. Other cadets began looking at differently, not with pity anymore, with curiosity. Some even approached her to ask questions about human biology. Answered them honestly. She explained how humans could run for hours without stopping, how they could survive injuries that would kill other species, how they could adapt to almost any environment given enough time. Heard these conversations, he saw how his cadets were starting to see the human differently. It made him angry. He increased her training. Longer runs, harder simulations, less rest time. He was trying to find her limit, trying to find the point where she would break. He did not find it. One night after a particularly brutal training session, sat in the observation deck with her body ached everywhere. There were bruises on top of bruises, but her eyes were sharp and focused. The midterm assessments are next week, said there will be important observers from the Galactic Council. I know will try to embarrass you. He will probably choose you for some kind of demonstration to show the council that humans do not belong here. Nodded slowly. I have been expecting something like that. What will you do? Was quiet for a moment. She looked out at the stars. Do you know what makes humans different from most species? She said finally. What? We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Predators hunted us, diseases attacked us, the weather destroyed our homes, and we survived. Not because we were strong, not because we were fast, but because we refused to give up. She turned to look at other species, see obstacles and look for ways around them. Humans see obstacles and look for ways through them. Studied her friend's face. You have a plan. I have been studying Commander for 3 months. I know how he moves. I know how he thinks. I know where his body is strong. Paused. And I know where it is weak. You cannot be serious. He is 300 years old. He has killed more enemies than you can count. That is true. Smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile, but he has never fought a human who was not afraid of him. Opened her mouth to argue, but something in eyes stopped her. When I was young, said my grandmother told me a story. She said that long ago humans hunted animals much bigger than themselves, elephants, whales. We did not have claws or fangs. We had patience and intelligence, and we had something else. She touched her chest. We had hearts that refused to stop beating. Outside the window, the Stars burned cold and distant, somewhere. Among them, ancestors had looked up at. The same stars and dreamed of reaching. Them, now she was here and she was. Ready, if wants a demonstration, she said quietly, I will give him one he will never forget. The day of the midterm assessment arrived. The main combat arena was filled with thousands of spectators. Representatives from the Galactic Council sat in special viewing boxes above the arena floor. Their eyes watched everything with cold interest. They were here to judge the Academy's progress and decide if funding would continue. Commander stood in the center of the arena. He wore ceremonial armor that shone under the bright lights. His forearms were crossed and his mandibles clicked slowly as he surveyed the crowd. Sat in the cadet section with the other students was next to her, his massive body taking up 3 seats. On her other side she could see Sung, and in the visitor area, Sun looked worried, looked like she might be sick. The commander has been in a strange mood all week. Said quietly, he is planning something. I know you do not seem concerned. Watch carefully. I have been waiting for this. Raised his arms in the crowd. Became silent. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, he said, his voice echoed through the arena. Welcome to the Combat Division Sigma midterm assessment. Today you will see what your funding produces. Today you will see the warriors of tomorrow. He began the demonstration. Selected cadets came forward one by one to show their skills. A cadet performed combat moved so fast that the eye could barely follow. Broke training dummies with single strikes. 2 beings from a species called the fought each other with perfect coordination. The council members nodded with approval. The Academy was producing excellent results, then paused. His black eyes found in the crowd. But strength is not everything, he said. A true warrior must also understand limits, must know what can be achieved and what cannot. He gestured toward the cadet section. Cadet Park stepped forward. The arena fell silent. Every eye turned to look at the small human woman. Stood up slowly. She walked down to the arena floor. Her footsteps seemed very loud in the quiet. When she reached the center, she stopped and faced the Galactic Council has asked us to train humans. Said to the crowd, they believe humans can become warriors like other species. They believe soft bodies and short lives can somehow compete with what evolution has perfected over millions of years. His mandibles clicked with amusement. Today, I will demonstrate the truth. He turned to, I will spar with you. Human, I will not use weapons. I will not use full force. I only want the council to see clearly and honestly the difference between a true warrior species. And he paused. An interesting experiment. Whispers spread through the crowd in the visitor section. Sun grabs arm. He is going to humiliate her in front of everyone. Shook her head. No, look at her face. His face showed nothing. No fear, no anger. Her eyes were calm like deep water. Walked to one side of the arena. He removed his ceremonial cape, revealing the full extent of his armored body. His forearms spread wide. Each arm was as thick as his entire body. His claws gleamed under the lights. I will give you the first strike, he said. Free, show the council what humans can do. Did not move. She simply looked at him. Come, human, do not be afraid. Hit me as hard as you can. Let us see your power. Still did not move. Instead she spoke. Commander, on your world do you have a concept called leverage? Tilted His head, his mandibles clicked slowly. What leverage, the use of position and force together, small forces applied at the right point can move large objects. His voice was calm and clear. It is a simple concept, very old on Earth. We used it to build pyramids and temples. We used it to move stones that weighed thousands of tons. I do not care about your primitive engineering. Voice was becoming impatient. Strike me, soft one, before I lose patience. Began to walk toward him. Her steps were slow and measured. She was not running. She was not rushing. She moved like water flowing toward its destination. On Earth, she continued, we also used leverage in combat. Our martial arts are built on this principle. We do not try to be stronger than our enemies. We try to be smarter. Watched her approach. There was something in her movement that he did not recognize, something controlled and precise. For just a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his black eyes. Then he pushed it away. She was just a human. What could a human do to him? Enough talk, he said. Strike me now or I will consider you a coward and end this demonstration. Stopped. She was about 3 m away from him. Her hands were at her sides. Her feet were positioned in a way that seemed casual but was actually very deliberate. As you wish, Commander. In the viewing stands leaned forward. She had seen practice. She had seen her study combat footage for hours. She had seen the determination in those dark eyes, but she did not know what was planning to do. Nobody did. Took a deep breath. She let it out slowly. Then she bowed. Formal bow, the kind that martial artists on Earth used to show respect before combat. Mandibles clicked with confusion. What are you doing on Earth? We bow before we fight. It shows respect for our opponent. Straightened up. Her eyes locked onto his. I want you to remember, Commander, that I showed you respect. Even at this moment. Why would I need to remember that? Smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that made instinct suddenly cry out in warning, because she said softly, in about 5 seconds, I am going to put you on the ground. Laughed. It was a loud, harsh sound that echoed through the arena. You put me on the ground. He spread his forearms wide. I have fought battles that lasted longer than your entire species has existed. I have killed creatures that would eat your world for breakfast. You are nothing but a soft little animal pretending to be a warrior. In the stand, sun covered his eyes. He could not watch. Leaned forward, his small eyes intense. He had seen Train. He had seen how she moved. Something told him that this was going to be different from what everyone expected. The council members watched with bored expressions. They had seen many demonstrations like this. The human would try to hit the would barely feel it. Everyone would laugh and they would move on to more important business. But one council member, an ancient creature with crystalline skin, was staring at with unusual interest. It had seen many things in its long life. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had seen species evolve and go extinct, and it saw something in the human's eyes that it had not seen in a very long time. Certainty. Strike me, human said. I am waiting. Planted her feet. She raised her hands. Her body became very still, like a coiled spring ready to release. Remember what I said about leverage, Commander, she whispered, and then she moved. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Later, the station's recording systems would slow down the footage to 100 speed. combat analysts from 12 different species would study it. For years, militaries across the galaxy would use it as a teaching example, but in the moment almost nobody saw what actually happened, did not charge forward, she did not attack chest or his head or any of the obvious targets. Instead, she dropped, her body fell toward the ground in a way that made no sense to eyes. Species had rigid spines, they could not bend the way bent, they could not get low the way got low. She went under his guard completely. Her body moved close to the ground, sliding forward like a snake, and her fist shot upward at an angle that could not block because he did not even know such an angle was possible. The strike hit the soft joint behind his lower left knee. Had spent 3 months studying anatomy. She knew that their armor covered almost everything, almost. There was a small gap behind each knee where the armor plates did not fully connect. It was necessary for their legs to bend. It was a design flaw in their evolution that nobody ever thought about because nobody ever attacked there. Why would they? To attack that point, you would have to get below a guard. You would have to be fast enough to strike before they could react. You would have to be willing to put yourself in a position where their 4 arms could grab you. No sane species would try it, but humans were not always sane. Sometimes humans did the impossible simply because they did not know it was impossible. Fist connected with perfect precision. She did not hold back. She put everything into that strike. Every hour of training, every day of pain, every moment of being laughed at and looked down upon, and humans, the analysts, would later note, could generate punching force that seemed impossible. For their size, their bodies were built for throwing projectiles. Their hips rotated, their shoulders turned, their muscles worked together in what scientists called a kinetic chain. When a human punched correctly, the power did not come from just the arm, it came from the entire body. Sleeve buckled, the mighty commander, the 300-year veteran, the terror of the academy, suddenly lost his balance. His body tilted to one side. His arms swung out automatically, trying to catch himself, but was already moving. Again, she pivoted on her feet, spinning her body in a tight circle. Her elbow came up and around, driving toward another point she had identified during her months of study, the soft tissue just below his mandibles, his throat. The second strike landed with a sound like meat hitting a wall. His head snapped back, his legs gave out completely, his massive body fell backward and crashed onto the arena floor with a sound like thunder. The arena was silent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Every eye was fixed on the impossible sight before them. Commander, the undefeated warrior, lay on his back. On the floor, above him stood a small human woman, breathing hard but standing straight in the viewing stand. Son's hands slowly fell from his eyes. His mouth was open. No words came out. Was crying. She did not know when she had stood up so fast that his seat broke. A sound was coming from his throat, something between a laugh and a roar. The crystalline council member leaned forward in its seat. Its ancient eyes studied the human with new interest. Very few things surprised it anymore. This surprised it. On the arena floor, groaned. He was not unconscious, but he was confused. His brain could not understand what had happened. One moment he was standing, the next moment the world turned upside down and pain exploded through his body. He tried to rise, but his leg would not support him. Medical teams were rushing toward him. But he waved them away. Stay back, he growled. Stay back. He forced himself to roll over, his forearms pushed against the ground, slowly, painfully. He rose to his knees. Had not moved. She stood in the same spot, waiting. Her hands were no longer raised. She was not in a fighting position. The fight, such as it was over. Howell's voice was rough with pain and confusion. How did you do that? Took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. I told you, Commander. Leverage, position, precision. She paused. And 3 months of studying your anatomy. 3 months stared at her. You planned this for 3 months, since the first day. Walked toward him slowly. You were right about humans. We are not as strong as you, not as fast, not as well protected. But we have something that your species does not. What? Patience. She stopped in front of him. On Earth, our ancestors hunted animals 10 times their size. They did not do it by being stronger. They did it by being smarter, by learning where to strike, by waiting for the right moment. She looked into his black eyes. You thought I was weak because I was not fighting back, but I was not fighting back because I was not ready. Yet I was learning, watching, waiting. Was silent for a long moment. His mandibles moved slowly, and the strike itself. He asked finally, that power. How humans evolved to throw things. Rocks, spears. Our bodies are built to generate rotating force. When we throw a punch correctly, we use our entire body. Held up her fist. This small hand can generate more force than it looks like. Much more. The medical team finally reached. They helped him to his feet. His left leg was badly injured, and he could not put weight on it, but his eyes never left. The arena remained silent. Thousands of beings watched, not knowing what to do or say. Then the crystalline council member did something unexpected. It stood up in its viewing box. Its ancient body moved slowly but deliberately, and it began to make a sound. The sound was its species form of applause, a ringing tone that echoed through the arena. One by one, other council members joined in, then cadets in the stands, then spectators. The sound grew and grew until it filled the entire arena. They were applauding. She stood in the center of the arena floor alone, surrounded by the sound of thousands of beings celebrating her victory. She did not smile. She did not raise her arms in triumph. She simply stood there, breathing slowly, letting herself feel the moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She walked toward and offered him her hand. The commander looked at it. His black eyes were unreadable for a long moment. He did not move. Then slowly he reached out with one of his arms and took her hand, helped steady him as the medical team supported his weight. It was a symbolic gesture. She could not actually hold his weight, but the meaning was clear. On Earth, she said quietly, so only he could hear, we have a saying. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. She paused. But we also have another saying. There is no shame in losing to someone who is willing to work harder than you. Looked at her for a long time. His mandibles clicked. Slowly, you did not just work harder, he said finally. You saw what no one else saw. You planned what no one else planned. He paused. That is not the mark of a survivor. That is the mark of a predator. Nodded slightly. Humans were never prey, Commander. We just let everyone think we were. 3 weeks later, graduated from the combat academy. She was the first human ever to complete the program. At the graduation ceremony, Commander himself presented her with the Academy's highest honor as he pinned the medal to her uniform. He said, "Something that would become famous across the galaxy. I was wrong about your species," he said. His voice was formal, but there was something like respect in it. "You are not soft, you are not weak, you are condensed." Smiled slightly. "We prefer the word efficient." When she returned to Earth, reporters asked her what she had learned during her time at the Academy. Her answer was broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system. "I learned that the universe is full of species that evolved claws and armor and venom." She said they evolved these things because they needed them to survive. Humans evolved something different. We evolved the absolute refusal to stay down. She paused and looked directly into the camera. "No matter how many times we fall, we get back up. No matter how much it hurts, we keep going. That is what makes us human. Not our bodies, not our weapons, but the spirit inside us that says, no matter what, I will not give up." Back on station. Verse 7. Commander watched the broadcast in his quarters. His leg had healed, but he still felt a strain sensation in his knee. When the weather changed, he did not mind. Every time he felt it, he remembered the lesson he had learned: never underestimate a human, because no matter how small they look, no matter how weak they seem, there is always something more hiding behind those soft eyes, a predator, a survivor, and a spirit that refuses to die.